My name is Michael Gummery. I'm a partner here at HUE Munjad in Melbourne. So in terms of identifying those, there's a few ways that we do that. So a lot of it happens at the planning phase of the audit, which is kind of upfront before the year end comes around. One of them is we'll go out and visit with the client and get an understanding of their business. So talk to them about what they do, and then we also figure out how they do it. So we look at the processes that underlie their business. When we're doing that, we're trying to identify potential risks, and we're also trying to identify controls, which are things that the company has in place to try and mitigate and prevent those risks from coming about. Another one is what we call the team planning event. So separate to meeting with the client, the audit team will actually meet as a group. So that's the audit partner, which is me, and the team, the manager, the seniors and the staff will get together and have a discussion about the company. It covers all sorts of topics, but one of the main topics will be significant risks. So going through what we think the risks of the business are because of what it does or the industry it operates in, or some particular information we might know, or something that's happened in the economy that may impact on them. And we also consider fraud as part of that process as well. Essentially, by identifying that risk, we've said that that is an area that needs greater input from the auditor and more focus and more work. So then what we do is essentially plan how we're going to respond to that risk. There's a few things we do, and there's some things that are mandated by auditing standards. So one of those is we have to actually identify the controls that the company's got in place around that risk and see whether they're operating effectively. Now, if they're not, we're required to communicate that to management. So we'll send them a letter basically outlining what we think that risk is and why we think that the controls are perhaps lacking in some area, and therefore recommending how they could improve that. So that's the kind of controls perspective of it. And then we design the tests that we're then going to do to try and mitigate the risk, or at least ensure that there's no material misstatement related to that risk. Generally speaking, with significant risks, it just means doing more testing. So you might have got your sort of standard tests that you perform, but the fact you've got a significant risk might mean bigger sample sizes, so more volume of actual tests that you do, or designing the tests in another way to mitigate that risk. So for example, the use of data analytic procedures, inquiry of management, substantive testing, it tends to be a combination of things we do. A significant part of our identification process for significant risks is at the planning phase. So it's not uncommon that circumstances change or information that you didn't become aware of at that stage comes up, which causes you to realize that perhaps there's additional significant risks. So it could, for example, just be that an event has occurred in that intervening period, the company's gone on board a business. Alternatively, you may have just made an assessment of what you felt the risk was at the planning phase based on what you knew then. And as you start to perform your testing in a particular area, you start to find issues or particular errors that lead you to realize that perhaps the risk was higher than you first thought. And then you have to go back and revise your risk. So when we talk about risk in the audit context, whilst we set them up front, they're constantly revisited and changing in the same way that materiality is as well. So we don't just kind of set it and forget it and leave it as it is. As we do our work, we get more information, we go back and we reconsider those risks.